So in the next 60 minutes or so, we're going to prove to you that almost everything you have been taught about leadership is, well, basically a lie.
A complete fabrication, honestly.
Right. I mean, it's a lie so pervasive, like so deeply embedded in our societal programming, that when you Google the word leader, the algorithm literally shows you a picture of a marching penguin before it shows you a single image of a woman.
Which is just wild when you actually think about it.
It really is. And when you search for CEO, the engine spits out a picture of CEO Barbie in a mid-sized skirt.
Yeah, it is a profound failure of our cultural imagination. And if you are listening to this right now, chances are you are a victim of that failure.
Oh, absolutely. I know I am.
Right, because you have been conditioned to believe that leadership is a destination, an endpoint or a tax bracket.
Like a VIP club.
Exactly. But today, we are taking a sledgehammer to that conditioning. We're diving deep into a really radical framework from a book called This is Day One, A Practical Guide to Leadership That Matters by Drew Dudley.
Which is just a fantastic read, by the way.
It really is. And our mission in this deep dive is to completely dismantle your understanding of leadership, to strip away the corporate hierarchy entirely.
Yeah, because we want to show you that leadership is not a title you just sit around waiting for someone to bestow upon you.
Not at all. It is fundamentally a daily behavioral choice.
I have to say, looking at this source material, it hits a very raw nerve for me.
How so?
Well, I think about you, the listener, and I think about my own life. I was staring at my performance review the other day, and there's this entire section dedicated to leadership.
Right, the dreaded leadership box.
Exactly. And my brain just blue screened. I mean, I am an everyday employee. I sit in a cubicle. I answer a terrifying, truly ungodly amount of emails.
We all do.
Yeah, and I just try to get through my meetings without spilling coffee on my laptop. So when I see the word leadership, my mind automatically conjures up these, historical monolithic figures.
The giants.
Yes. I picture titans of industry on magazine covers or politicians at podiums, George Washington crossing a frozen river, It just feels like this exclusive club that I am emphatically not a part of.
And that feeling of alienation, that's entirely by design. What you're describing is what the author identifies as the myth of the giant.
The myth of the giant. I like that phrasing.
Yeah, because when you trace the sociological history of how we teach leadership, it actually dates back to the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's where we began to conflate leadership with management. We started defining it entirely through the lens of maximizing labor and capital.
Which makes sense given the era.
Exactly. So consequently, we were given examples of giants. Presidents, conquerors, billionaires, and historically speaking, mostly white men who held immense structural power.
Right, the people with all the leverage.
Yes. We are taught to look at these massive untouchable figures and deduce that that is leadership.
And if you don't look like them or have their bank account, you're out of luck.
Precisely. The psychological damage of this myth is that it effectively excludes 99% of the population from ever even claiming the title.
Which brings us back to the Google search from the beginning.
Yes, the penguins.
Yeah. When the author points out the algorithm prioritizing penguins and Barbie dolls over diverse human representation, it's not just some funny internet quirk.
No, it's a mirror.
Exactly. It's a mirror reflecting our collective subconscious. If our literal data models don't view everyday people as leaders, no wonder I look at my cubicle and think, well, I don't have a flock to lead.
Right.
And my net worth isn't in the billions, so I guess I am just an employee.
And stop right there. You just used one of the most destructive four-letter words in the English language.
Wait, I did. What did I say?
You said just. You said, I am just an employee.
Oh, yeah, I did.
The behavioral psychology behind that word is devastating. There is a profound story in the book that illustrates this perfectly.
Is this the one about the janitor?
Yes, Mr. Peters. So the author, Drew Dudley, after achieving some initial success in his career, he goes back to visit his old high school. Now, he is very open about the fact that he was deeply insecure in high school. He was an overweight kid who essentially wore his football jersey every single day as a physical shield against the world.
Oh, man, that's heartbreaking. But also very relatable for high school?
Very. But there was one person at that school who cut through the insecurity, who made every single student feel seen and valued, and that was Mr. Peters, the school janitor.
Everyone has a Mr. Peters in their history.
Right.
Like every high school, every office building has that one staff member who is actually the emotional keystone of the entire ecosystem.
Precisely. Thousands of students had walked those halls over the years, and Mr. Peters knew them all.
Wow.
And many of those students went on to become renowned doctors, powerful lawyers, and yes, CEOs. So when Drew saw Mr. Peters, he rushed up to him, recognizing this massive, undeniable impact the man had on generations of teenagers.
He wanted to validate him.
Exactly. He tried to articulate that legacy to him.
And do you know how Mr. Peters responded?
I do, and it hurts. He gave this dismissive, almost embarrassed shrug, and he said, "I'm just a janitor, lucky enough to know all of you before you hit the big time."
Oh, man. That physically hurts to hear. Just a janitor.
Yeah.
He entirely erased himself from the narrative of their success.
He erased his own legacy because of a linguistic qualifier.
Just.
Exactly. From a neuro-linguistic standpoint, the word just is a self-imposed limiting mechanism. We use it to diminish ourselves before the world can do it for us.
That is so true. It's like a defense mechanism.
It is. We use it to give other people permission to expect less from us. Mr. Peters had intrinsically tied his self-worth and his definition of his own leadership to his rank in the societal hierarchy and his hourly wage.
Because he looked at his paycheck and his title, he blinded himself to his own profound impact.
Exactly.
Okay, I understand the tragedy of that, but I feel like I need to push back here for a second.
Please do.
Because this is where the philosophy usually loses people like me. Doesn't society literally reward and enforce those titles?
Well,
Like, it is incredibly hard not to feel like just a middle manager or just a student or just a barista when the corporate hierarchy constantly, loudly reminds you of your exact place in the pecking order.
I hear you.
I mean, the rent is due on the first of the month. My landlord doesn't care about my intrinsic leadership qualities. He cares about the extrinsic financial reward I get from my job.
That's a very fair point.
So how do you, or anyone listening, escape just a trap when the world physically operates on that exact currency? You can't pay for groceries with intrinsic value.
That is a harsh, undeniable reality. And honestly, if we ignore the economics of modern life, this whole framework just becomes toxic positivity.
Right. It's just platitudes.
Exactly. You cannot separate yourself from your economic reality, but what you must separate is your economic reality from your internal identity.
Okay, distinguish those for me.
The trap isn't that you have a boss or that you pay rent. The trap is believing that you must wait for external validation, like a promotion, a degree, a specific salary, to give yourself permission to behave like a leader.
Ah, I see.
If you require a title to lead, you will spend your entire life in a waiting room. The paradigm shift we are looking at today argues that true leadership requires radical vulnerability, not corporate invincibility.
Radical vulnerability.
Yes, and it requires treating every single day as a psychological reset.
A psychological reset. Okay, if leadership isn't a mountain we are slowly climbing, what is the alternative mechanism?
The alternative mechanism is day one. And to understand it, we actually have to look at the author's own vulnerability.
Right, he gets very personal in the book.
He does. Dudley strips away the polished veneer we expect from leadership gurus. He doesn't present himself as a giant at all.
No, not all.
He openly discusses his battle with bipolar disorder in a corporate world that, tragically, confuses mental illness with mental weakness.
Which is a huge stigma to break.
Massive. And he talks about the sheer terror of walking away from a safe, prestigious university salary to start his own business with literally no safety net.
That's terrifying.
And he also talks about weighing over 300 pounds during the very TEDx talk that launched his international career and his painful journey to lose over 100 pounds.
Yeah. But there's another struggle that he mentions, right?
Yes. The foundational struggle that anchors this entire philosophy is his battle with alcoholism.
That level of disclosure is rare. I mean, usually the person on the stage telling you how to optimize your life isn't also admitting that they frequently feel powerless over their own biology and impulses.
And that paradox is exactly where the power lies. In addiction recovery programs, there is a foundational neurological and philosophical concept, and that is the day one mindset.
Okay, how does that work?
When you are in recovery, your sobriety relies on one non-negotiable daily behavior. You must choose not to drink today.
Just today.
Just today. It absolutely does not matter if you have been sober for 5 straight years. The neurology of addiction dictates that when you wake up in the morning, those 5 years of past success do not guarantee your success today.
You can't coast on yesterday's win.
Exactly. You have to consciously make the choice, commit to the behavior all over again. You wipe the slate clean. Today is day one.
Wow. So if we pull that out of the context of addiction and apply it to everyday leadership, the argument is that past success or past titles don't give you a free pass.
It means you never earn the right to coast. You do not get to say, well, I got the VP title last year, so my leadership is cemented, and I can just ride this out until retirement.
Because the brain wants to do that, right?
Yes, the brain conserves energy by putting familiar routines on autopilot, and that autopilot is the enemy of leadership.
That makes a lot of sense.
You must consciously, actively choose to be a leader today, through your behaviors, regardless of what you achieved yesterday.
I see the underlying logic there, I really do, but it still feels a bit abstract to me.
Let's ground it then.
Yeah, I need an example of what this actually looks like in practice. How does fighting neurological autopilot manifest in the real world, especially in a professional setting?
Okay, to answer that, we have to travel to the outskirts of Doha, Qatar at dawn.
Oh, taking a trip. I'm in.
So the author had a rare day off during a grueling international speaking tour and decided to go dune bashing.
Dune bashing. For those listening who don't know, dune bashing essentially involves driving a heavily modified 4x4 off massive sheer sand cliffs at like 70 miles an hour.
Exactly.
Which sounds simultaneously exhilarating and like a terrible way to spend a day off.
It definitely requires a certain appetite for risk. So Drew walks out of his hotel. He's bleary-eyed and deeply jet-lagged.
Naturally.
And bounding toward him across the pavement is this man who is practically vibrating with energy. The man throws his arms wide to the sky and yells, "Welcome to Mustafa's grand adventure. I am Mustafa."
See, if I had a fraction of that energy on a Monday morning, I'd be unstoppable.
It's an incredible introduction, but Drew, who is exhausted, makes a terrible, terrible mistake.
Oh no. What did he do?
He decides to be funny. He throws his arms wide, matches the man's energy, and belts out the opening Zulu chant from the Lion King at the top of his lungs.
Oh no. Please tell me he did not Mufasa the man named Mustafa.
No, he absolutely did.
I am wincing just thinking about it.
And the reaction was instantaneous. Mustafa's smile just vanishes. His eyes go dead flat. He leans in and hisses through clenched teeth. That was Mufasa.
Oh my God.
And then he violently jerks the car door open and demands Drew get in.
I would be reconsidering all of my life choices in that moment. I would be looking at this man and thinking, he is going to drive me to the middle of the desert and leave me there for the vultures.
Drew actually started backing away. He was stammering apologies, trying to cancel the trip right then and there.
I don't blame him.
But right at the peak of the tension, Mustafa's face splits into this massive grin, and he lets out a booming laugh.
Wait, he was joking.
He was entirely messing with him. He says, "I am just teasing you, my friend." It was a masterclass in breaking the ice and establishing rapport.
Okay, Mustafa is a comedic genius.
He really is. So they get in the car, and Mustafa is just a geyser of enthusiasm. He's telling jokes. He's spouting obscure facts about Canada that he clearly researched the night before just to make his client feel welcome.
That's great customer service.
It is. He is vibrating with joy. And then they hit the dunes. We are talking about 100-foot vertical drops of shifting sand.
Terrifying.
Mustafa is cackling with laughter, slamming the accelerator, flying toward what looks like certain death, and Drew is white-knuckling the dashboard, absolutely terrified.
Yeah, the jet lag is probably gone by now.
Oh, completely. And he yells over the roaring engine, "Mustafa, you do this every day. How do you stay so excited about it?"
Good question.
And Mustafa looks over at him with this huge, radiant smile and yells back, "It's my first day."
Wait, pause.
Yeah.
He is driving 70 miles an hour off a literal cliff.
Yeah.
On his first day on the job. I would be clawing my way out of the moving vehicle.
That was Drew's exact reaction. He practically tries to climb into the back seat.
Get me out of here.
Mustafa sees the sheer panic in his passenger, slams on the brakes right at the jagged edge of a dune, and starts laughing again.
This guy loves a dramatic pause.
He leans in and says, "Don't you realize you want the new guy?"
I have to violently disagree with Mustafa on that. If I am in a life or death situation, or even just undergoing a complex surgery, I want the 20-year veteran. I do not want the intern on day one.
That is the instinctive response, right?
Yeah.
We equate time served with quality. But listen to Mustafa's psychological breakdown of the workplace.
Okay, let's hear it.
He says, think about your first day of work. You show up early. You make sure your uniform is crisp. You are incredibly patient with annoying coworkers because you want to make a good impression.
That's true. You're on your best behavior.
Exactly. You double-check your work. Most importantly, you ask questions without ego because there is no shame in being the new guy.
Right. You're allowed to not know things.
Yes. You are never more committed and never more convinced it's the best job you've ever had than on your first day.
Okay, I'm tracking with him now.
And then Mustafa leans back and delivers the gut punch. He says, as soon as your second day begins, all of that starts to stop being quite so true, doesn't it?
That is, wow. That is incredibly profound because it diagnoses exactly how workplace rot happens. Day 2 is where the ego creeps in.
Exactly. But here's the twist. Mustafa had been driving those dunes for 17 years.
17 years?
He had owned the entire tour company for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
But on his very first day, 17 years prior, he had such a transcendent, incredible experience that he made a solemn promise to himself. He would never have a second day of work.
So he just kept hitting reset.
For 17 years, he woke up, wiped the slate clean, and treated every single shift as day one.
This completely flips my understanding of how experience works. If we think about this in terms of technology, it's like a computer's RAM or a video game cache.
I love this analogy. Go on.
You know how when you leave your browser open for weeks with like 80 tabs, the computer gets sluggish, bogged down by all the cached data and background processes?
Yes, the spinning wheel of death.
Right. Mustafa's basically saying, keep the hard drive data like, keep the 17 years of muscle memory of how to drive the car, but clear the RAM every single morning.
That is exactly it.
Wipe the cached ego. Wipe the biases. Wipe the residual resentment you hold toward your boss or that one client who annoyed you yesterday.
Yes.
You reboot the system, leaving only your highest functioning, most attentive, most humble self.
That is a phenomenal analogy. Clearing the RAM perfectly describes the neuroplasticity required for day one leadership. Day 2 is where complacency lives.
Yeah, where you just go through the motions.
Day 2 is where cognitive bias takes over and we say, I already know how to handle this type of client, so I'm not going to listen closely. Day 2 is where we let annoyance dictate our behavior instead of patience.
So Mustafa's team is just constantly clearing their RAM.
Mustafa's company is the top-rated tour company in Qatar, not because they have the newest cars, but because his entire staff is trained to do exactly that. It is a daily, conscious behavioral choice to reject autopilot.
I love that concept. I really do. But if we connect this to the listener, what does clearing your RAM actually do for the people around you?
What do you mean?
Well, if leadership isn't about titles, and it requires this daily reset to prevent complacency, how does that actually manifest its impact? If I'm sitting in my cubicle, actively clearing my emotional cache, how am I suddenly a leader to my coworkers?
To understand the external impact of that internal reset, we have to explore our massive blind spots regarding human connection. We have to talk about the lollipop moment.
The lollipop moment. All right, lay it on me.
Let's wind the clock back. The author is 25 years old. By all societal metrics, he is a young giant in the making.
Okay, prime giant age.
He's the classic overachiever, valedictorian, prom king, captain of the football team. He has bought entirely into the myth.
He drank the Kool-Aid.
Completely. He believes leadership is about accumulating accolades and high marks to impress people he hasn't even met yet. He is curating his life for future admissions counselors and future corporate recruiters.
I know that feeling intimately, and I bet a lot of our listeners do too.
Yeah.
The entire first decade of my career felt less like living and more like assembling a portfolio.
Yes, exactly.
You aren't actually present in your own life. You are just trying to build a resume that will make some hypothetical future authority figure nod in approval.
That is the exact trap you are living in the waiting room.
Oh, the waiting room, yeah.
So Drew is at his university running a charity drive for cystic fibrosis. He is wearing this incredibly stupid, oversized, colorful hat, carrying a massive bucket of lollipops, and trying to drum up donations.
Picture-perfect college volunteer.
Right. And he is walking along the line of incoming freshmen who are waiting for university registration. Now, if you remember college registration before everything was entirely online, it was a nightmare.
Oh, the worst. The room is chaotic, it's loud, the line is seemingly endless, and everyone is stressed.
First day of college. Pete's social and logistical anxiety.
You're terrified of looking stupid, terrified of choosing the wrong major, terrified of not making friends.
Exactly. The air is thick with tension.
Right.
So Drew spots a girl in the line who looks absolutely petrified. She looks completely overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the university.
Other thing.
He stops, stares at her for a prolonged second, which she later told him was highly creepy,
Natural.
and then turns to the guy standing next to her. He reaches into his bucket, hands the guy a lollipop, and says loudly, "Dude, you're going to be stuck in this line for another 2 hours. The woman next to you is absolutely beautiful. Break the ice. give her this lollipop.
Oh, that is a bold, aggressive move, putting a terrified 18-year-old guy on the spot like that in front of hundreds of people.
The guy turns beet red. He is mortified. He won't even make eye contact with her. He just sort of blindly, awkwardly thrusts the lollipop in her general direction.
I am dying of secondhand embarrassment right now.
It gets worse. The girl, feeling terrible for him because he looks so deeply uncomfortable, takes it just to let him off the hook.
Okay, crisis averted.
But Drew doesn't stop there. As soon as her fingers close around the stick, he gasps, looks directly at her parents who are standing nearby, and yells so the entire gymnasium can hear. Look at her. First day away from home, and already she's taking candy from a stranger.
Okay, I am physically cringing just visualizing that. It is so cheesy.
Yeah.
But honestly, in a high-stress environment, I bet that completely punctured the tension.
It shattered it. For 20 feet in every direction, the crowd absolutely erupted in laughter. It was this spontaneous moment of shared levity in a highly stressful, isolated environment.
Okay, so it worked.
It did. Now, fast forward 4 years. Drew is packing up his office, getting ready to leave the university, and a young woman tracks him down.
No way. Is it her?
It's the same girl. She comes up to him and confesses something staggering.
What does she say?
She tells him that on that specific day, standing in that registration line, she had hit her breaking point.
Oh, wow.
She was so overwhelmed, so terrified that she wasn't smart enough or brave enough for college, that she had made the final decision to quit.
Just like that. On the first day.
She was going to turn to her parents, tell them she couldn't do it, and go back home.
She was literally standing in the precipice of abandoning her future.
She was completely done. But then this random guy in a stupid hat made a joke, forced a clumsy interaction, and made everyone laugh.
The lollipop moment.
Yes. She told Drew that in that fleeting moment of shared laughter, she felt for the very first time like she belonged there. The alienation broke.
That is beautiful.
She felt like she could survive, so she stayed. And then she added one final cinematic detail.
Let me guess. She and the guy with the lollipop became best friends.
Better. She and the guy who handed her the lollipop had been dating for those entire 4 years.
Come on. That sounds like it was scripted by a Hollywood rom-com writer. Are you kidding me?
It sounds like fiction, but it is entirely true. Yet here is the psychological crux of the story, the part that redefines what leadership is.
Okay, I'm ready.
When she told Drew this deeply moving story about how he fundamentally altered the trajectory of her life, he had absolutely no memory of the event happening. None. Zero recall.
Wait, really? He didn't remember it at all?
Not a single detail.
He literally changed the course of this woman's education, her geographic location, and her romantic life. And his brain didn't even register it as a significant event.
Not at all. And this is where the psychology of everyday leadership becomes vital for you, the listener, to understand.
Why are we so blind to our own impact?
Drew stresses the immense danger of letting everyday leadership slip by uncelebrated. We change lives daily. We say a kind word to a colleague who is spiraling. We diffuse a tense situation in a meeting. We offer a small piece of advice to a younger sibling.
Things we don't even think twice about.
Right. But because we are deeply conditioned to wait for external permission, the promotion, the award, the formal title to call ourselves leaders, we refuse to take credit for these interpersonal moments.
We just brush them off.
We view them as just being nice, rather than recognizing them as the literal fabric of leadership.
That is a staggering thought. If you think about the listener right now, driving in their car or sitting at their desk, it makes you wonder how many lollipop moments they have created without knowing it.
Hundreds, probably.
And conversely, how many moments of profound connection we have all missed because our RAM was clogged with anxiety about trying to impress a boss or hit a metric.
That is the tragedy of the waiting room. If we don't label these moments as leadership, we don't value them. And if we don't value them, we don't intentionally try to replicate them.
We leave our greatest impacts up to pure chance.
Exactly.
Which brings up a massive logistical problem for me.
What's that?
If the original lollipop moment was totally accidental, like if you're just goofing off in a silly hat, how do we operationalize this? I can't just walk around my office handing out candy on a mundane Tuesday, hoping to accidentally change someone's life.
Right, please don't do that.
Hope is not a strategy. How do we create these moments intentionally, especially when we are bogged down by emails and deadlines?
Hope is not a strategy is exactly the right phrasing. We must, in Dudley's words, plan to matter.
Plan to matter. I like that.
The book outlines a very specific behavioral 3-step process to transition from accidental impact to intentional day one leadership.
Let's hear the steps.
Step 1. Identify a key core value that matters to you. Step 2. Clearly define what that value looks like in action. Step 3. Turn it into an action-driving daily question.
Okay, let's workshop this so it makes sense practically. Let's say one of my core values is impact. Everyone wants to have an impact.
Great. So step 1, value is impact. Step 2, we need a behavioral definition, not a dictionary definition. Let's define impact as creating moments that cause people to feel better off for having interacted with you.
Okay, I can visualize that.
Now, step 3 is where the magic happens. You turn that definition into a daily measurable question. For impact, the question might be, what have I done today to recognize someone else's leadership?
What have I done today to recognize someone else's leadership? I like that because it forces my perspective outward.
Exactly.
It forces me to actively scan my environment for positive behavior instead of just stewing in my own stress.
You are holding yourself accountable every single day to answer that question. It becomes a filter through which you view the world. Let me give you a brilliant example from the book of how this plays out in real time.
Please do.
Drew is at a grocery store. He's checking out, and he casually asks the cashier which chocolate on the impulse buy display shelf is the best. The cashier, who is clearly having a miserable, exhausting day, snaps at him aggressively. The caramels.
Oof. We have all been on both sides of that interaction.
Definitely.
When someone snaps at you like that, the immediate biological fight or flight response is to either snap back, get defensive, or just silently judge them.
It is the default human reaction to meet aggression with aggression. It's day 2 behavior.
Right.
But Drew has his daily question running in the forefront of his RAM. What have I done today to recognize someone else's leadership?
So he's actively looking for it.
Because he is actively looking for leadership, he notices something else. He recognizes that despite her terrible mood, this woman is highly efficient. She is moving the line fast. She is handling complex transactions effortlessly. She is just deeply stressed.
She's competent, just overwhelmed.
Exactly. So instead of getting mad, he executes a massive pattern interrupt. He puts the caramels on the belt. He buys them for her.
No way.
Yes. And he stops her, looks her in the eye, and says, I have to tell you, you are incredible at your job. I teach leadership for a living, and the way you handle this fast-paced, high-stress environment is a prime example of what real leadership looks like.
Buying the chocolate for her. That is a brilliant pattern interrupt. It completely short-circuits the expected social script.
Yeah.
How did she react to being called a leader?
The societal armor completely dissolved. She broke down.
Really?
She started crying right there at the register, revealing that she felt like she was, in her exact words, just a cashier.
There's that word again. Just?
Yes. She felt invisible to management, undervalued by customers, and emotionally exhausted. In that 10-second interaction, simply by operationalizing his value of impact, Drew dismantled her just trap.
He gave her a lollipop moment entirely on purpose.
Entirely on purpose.
Okay, I want to make sure I can actually do this and that our listeners can do this. Let's workshop another one, applying it to a standard, incredibly frustrating office situation.
Bring it on.
Say I'm in a project meeting and I have a notoriously difficult coworker. Let's call him Steve.
We all know a Steve.
We do. Steve's entire personality is playing devil's advocate. He loves to shoot down ideas without offering solutions. Usually, my day 2 reaction is to either shut down completely or get deeply passive-aggressive.
Sure.
If my chosen value is empowerment, what does my day 1 question look like to handle Steve?
Okay, if your value is empowerment, your daily question might be, what did I do today to help someone else feel genuinely heard?
Oh, that's good.
So, in that meeting, when Steve starts tearing down your timeline, instead of shutting down or getting defensive, you intentionally pause. You clear the RAM of your annoyance.
Reboot the system.
And you say, Steve, I hear you're concerned about the timeline. Your analytical skills are really sharp. What specific adjustment would make you feel more confident in this rollout?
Whoa! That totally changes the energy in the room.
Notice what happens there. You aren't agreeing with his negativity, and you aren't validating his bad attitude, but you are empowering his voice and forcing him to be constructive.
You are changing the dynamic from conflict to collaboration.
Exactly. In that moment, you are leading the meeting, regardless of whether you have the word manager in your title.
That is incredibly potent. You are using a question as a tool to override your own worst instincts.
Yes.
I can see this working at home, too. If my value is patience, and my kid is having a full-blown meltdown because they can't find their shoes and we are running late for school, my default stressed reaction is to yell, just put on any shoes, we have to go.
It happens to the best of us.
But if my daily question is, what did I do today to create calm in chaos? Then my behavior absolutely has to change. I can't yell and answer that question affirmatively.
Wow, you can.
I have to physically get down on their level, take a breath, regulate my own nervous system, and help them look.
Yeah.
The question forces the behavior.
Yes, you are nailing it.
Yeah.
You are taking your values, which are usually just abstract concepts we hang on motivational posters, and translating them into concrete daily behavioral blueprints.
It makes it tangible.
But, and this is the critical psychological caveat that almost all leadership books gloss over, you are going to fail at this.
Oh, thank God. Because I was just sitting here thinking, I'm definitely going to yell about the shoes at least once a week. I am definitely going to snap at Steve occasionally.
And you should plan for that exact reality.
Really? Plan to fail.
Yes. Drew learned this from his weight loss coach. When he started his journey to lose over 100 pounds, his coach gave him 3 daily measurable questions.
What were they?
Did I eat under 1,800 calories? Did I burn over 3,000? Did I do 15 seconds more cardio than I did yesterday?
Okay. Standard fitness metrics.
But then she told him something vital, something that completely changes the psychology of habit formation. She told him to build failure into the plan.
I want to dig into that because it reminds me of James Clear's work in Atomic Habits or even principles of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Oh, absolutely.
When we talk about building failure into the plan, we aren't talking about having a backup plan, right? We are talking about expecting the failure as a feature, not a bug.
That is a phenomenal connection. Yes, exactly. She told him, don't create a contingency plan in case you fail. Build the inevitable failure into your psychological blueprint at the outset.
How does that help, though? Doesn't that just give you an excuse to quit?
Let's look at the CBT connection you mentioned. If you demand absolute perfection from yourself, you create a brittle psychological state.
Right, because the moment you mess up, the whole thing shatters.
Exactly. The very first time you fail. The first time you yell at your kid, or snap at the cashier, or get passive-aggressive with Steve, your brain catastrophizes. You feel like a massive fraud.
You say, see, I knew I wasn't a real leader. I'm just an employee.
And you quit entirely. Perfectionism becomes a momentum killer. But if failure is already written into the blueprint, a bad day isn't the end of the journey.
It's just a bump in the road.
It is just data. It is part of the process. You wake up the next day, you say, this is day 1, you clear the RAM, and you start again.
That is incredibly freeing because it removes the shame from the equation.
It does.
So if the formula really is this accessible, pick a value, define it, make a daily question, and expect to mess up sometimes. What stops us? Because clearly, we aren't walking around in a utopia of enlightened day 1 leaders.
We certainly are not.
If it's this simple, what is the massive obstacle blocking us?
The obstacles are twofold. There's the psychological baggage we insist on carrying, and then there's the brutal reality of survival mode.
Okay, let's tackle the baggage first.
We do that through a concept Dudley calls the fake leg. He shares the story of a woman named Stephanie. Stephanie was born without a right hip.
Okay.
For years, particularly during her school years, she wore a prosthetic fake leg. Now, the logical assumption is that she wore the prosthetic because it helped her walk or improved her mobility, right?
Yeah, that would be the assumption.
But she confided in Drew that the prosthetic actually slowed her down significantly. And worse, it caused her immense chronic physical pain.
Wait, really?
Yes. She was much faster, more agile, and completely pain-free when she just used crutches.
Then why on earth would she wear it every day?
She wore it to make other people comfortable.
Oh, wow.
She endured severe physical pain every single day so that society wouldn't have to feel awkward looking at a girl with one leg. She absorbed the discomfort so others wouldn't have to.
That is awful.
And Stephanie told Drew something that should haunt all of us. She said, almost everybody has a fake leg in their life. Anything that you keep in your life that slows you down and hurts you, and the only reason it's still in your life is because it makes who you are more palatable to other people, that is your fake leg.
Oh, wow. That hits incredibly hard.
It does.
So if you are listening to this right now, the question you have to ask yourself is, what is your fake leg?
Exactly. What exhausting habits or manufactured personas or entire career paths are you maintaining in your life just to make your reality more acceptable to your parents, your boss, or society at large?
And wearing that fake leg drains the exact energy you need to practice everyday leadership.
Precisely.
I think for a lot of people, their fake leg is their job title itself.
How so?
They stay in a corporate job that makes them utterly miserable, that drains their soul, because saying I'm a senior director of marketing makes them sound palatable and successful at dinner parties, even if they are dying inside.
That is a perfect example.
And that exhaustion, the sheer weight of carrying the fake leg, leads directly to the second obstacle, doesn't it?
It does. And Mustafa, our favorite dune-bashing driver, had a brilliant phrase for dealing with this kind of exhaustion. He told Drew to think like a landlord.
Think like a landlord, meaning what?
The concept of rent-free minds. Mustafa explained that your head and your heart are the most valuable pieces of real estate you will ever control.
Okay.
If you allow anger, bitterness, insecurity, or resentment to take up space in your mind, you are letting them live there rent-free.
And they are terrible tenants.
Terrible. A good landlord demands value in exchange for space. If a grudge against a coworker or anxiety about a promotion is taking up massive mental real estate, it isn't paying rent, it is just causing damage.
Yeah.
You have to actively evict those thoughts to make room for leadership questions.
But see, evicting those thoughts is nearly impossible when the corporate environment is constantly on fire.
And here we hit the reality of the workplace.
This brings up the story of Albert on the train, which I think perfectly diagnoses why so many listeners feel completely stuck.
Yes, Albert, the PR veteran.
Right. He had worked in the high-stress public relations industry for 35 years.
Uh-huh.
And he broke leadership down into two distinct categories: one-day leadership and next-day leadership.
Exactly. Albert defined one-day leadership as the strategic, visionary stuff.
The big picture.
Right. It's the grand, sweeping vision. It is sitting in a boardroom, mapping out where the company will be in 5 years or where your career will be in 10 years.
Okay, and next-day leadership.
Next-day leadership is pure crisis management. It is stripping everything down to the bare, ugly essentials just to survive the current disaster and make it to tomorrow.
And this is my absolute biggest pushback to the entire day one concept. Modern work culture, especially post-pandemic, has forced almost all of us into perpetual next-day leadership.
We are constantly in survival mode.
We are constantly putting out fires. The supply chain breaks, the client is screaming, the servers go down, the budget is slashed. We are operating in chronic, low-grade survival mode.
I completely validate that.
To bring back our RAM analogy, our cache is completely maxed out by alarms and sirens. When you are just trying to survive until 5 p.m. on a Friday without having a breakdown, the idea of stepping back to ask, how did I empower someone today? Feels like a luxury we simply cannot afford. The exhaustion is the obstacle.
That is the most common and valid critique of behavioral leadership models. How do you lead when you are drowning?
Exactly how.
Albert addressed this beautifully. He said that organizations and individuals get really, really good at next-day leadership.
Because we have to.
And because the adrenaline rush of fixing a crisis, of being the hero who puts out the fire, is intoxicating. But if firefighting becomes your default state, you never actually build anything. You just survive in the ashes.
That paints a bleak picture.
The antidote to perpetual next-day exhaustion isn't waiting for the fires to stop, because the reality of modern life is that the fires will never stop.
So what is the antidote?
The antidote is inserting everyday leadership, those intentional lollipop moments, directly into the firefighting.
Wait, combine them?
Yes. When you pause during a massive supply chain crisis to check in on a junior colleague's mental health, you aren't slowing down the crisis response. You are strengthening the resilience of the team solving it.
Oh, I see.
You are clearing their RAM so they can think clearly.
So we have to fundamentally stop waiting for the perfect time to lead. We have to stop waiting to drop the fake leg, stop waiting to evict the mental tenants, stop waiting for the inbox to hit zero.
Precisely. Waiting for the future is the ultimate trap. It is a defense mechanism. And this brings us to the climax of Dudley's philosophy.
It's a heavy one.
It is a profoundly emotional realization about time, intrinsic value, and when leadership actually happens.
The stories he shares about his lost friends. They are heartbreaking, but they reframe everything we've talked about today.
They really do. Drew shares the stories of friends who passed away long before they ever had the chance to achieve the degrees, titles, or salaries that society equates with leadership.
Yeah.
He talks about his friend Scott, who died in a car accident when he was only 18. Drew was having a classic teenage moment of deep insecurity, complaining to Scott about the pressure to be successful one day, complaining about not having a girlfriend, worrying about his future portfolio.
Was stuck in the waiting room.
Exactly. And Scott looked at him and delivered this incredible wisdom. He said, "We care about you because of the guy you are now, not who you might be one day."
Not who you might be one day. That is a devastatingly clear-eyed view of human worth coming from an 18-year-old. It completely dismantles the waiting room mentality.
And then Drew shares the advice of another friend, Jason Abraham, who tragically died of cancer at 23.
Just terrible.
Jason was universally beloved on their college campus. People flocked to him. Drew asked him how he connected with people so easily, how he built such deep trust. Jason gave him a simple, unbreakable rule for integrity.
What was it?
He said, act as if they're standing directly behind you.
Wow. Simple, but incredibly profound.
Mm.
And the statistic the author shares in the book regarding this is staggering, and it puts a massive knot in my stomach.
Yeah, the statistic about funerals.
Right. Drew is in his early 40s, and he has been to 18 friends' funerals. 15 of them didn't live to see their 24th birthday.
15, let that sink in.
Yeah.
And yet, when Drew Dudley stands on stages in front of Fortune 500 CEOs and international politicians to teach them about leadership, he doesn't quote billionaires. He doesn't quote historical conquerors.
He quotes Scott and Jason.
He quotes Scott and Jason. Why? Because they mattered. They profoundly impacted the people around them. They were leaders purely based on their daily behavioral choices, without ever holding a corner office, without ever making a six-figure salary, without ever having the time to build a resume.
Okay. This right here, this is my aha moment.
Talk me through it.
As we are talking through this, I am realizing something deeply uncomfortable about myself, and I bet a lot of you listening are feeling the exact same way.
We're listening.
I have spent my entire adult life treating my current reality, my current job in the cubicle, my current skill set, my current apartment, as a waiting room. I keep telling myself, once I get this senior title, then I'll start mentoring the junior staff. Once I hit that specific salary bracket, then I'll have the mental bandwidth to be a thought leader in meetings.
You're waiting for permission.
Exactly. I have been viewing my actual precious life as a dress rehearsal for someday.
It is the most common tragic trap we fall into. We delay our own impact because we don't believe we have the required credentials to matter yet. We think we need a badge.
But thinking back, the moments I am actually proudest of in my entire career have absolutely nothing to do with my title or my performance reviews.
I'm sure they don't. Tell me about one.
Well, a few years ago, we had an intern who was completely drowning. He made a massive, highly visible error on a client report, and he was terrified he was going to be fired.
The ultimate next-day crisis for an intern.
Right. And I remember finding him literally hyperventilating in the break room. And I didn't scold him. I didn't report him. I just sat down, bought him a coffee from the terrible vending machine, and walked him through how to fix it, step by step.
You paused the crisis.
I told him about a much worse, much more expensive mistake I had made when I first started. He calmed down, his breathing regulated, he fixed the report, and he ended up getting hired full-time.
That's incredible.
I hadn't thought about that interaction in years, but
Mm.
that was a lollipop moment, wasn't it? I cleared his RAM.
That is the textbook definition of a lollipop moment. You didn't need a VP title to buy him that coffee. You didn't need a six-figure salary to share your own vulnerability and show empathy. You operationalized compassion in a moment of acute crisis.
I guess I did.
That is next-day firefighting combined with everyday leadership. And I want to project this exact realization onto everyone listening to us right now. You, the listener, whether you are a student, a middle manager, a barista, or a stay-at-home parent, you have these moments in your past.
You absolutely do.
You have changed someone's trajectory with a kind word, a moment of unexpected patience, or a vital piece of advice. You are already a leader.
The only thing missing is your willingness to claim the title and your dedication to practicing it intentionally.
Yes.
It fundamentally changes how you view your alarm clock going off in the morning. It's no longer, ugh, another day grinding in the machine.
Exactly.
It's, okay, the cache is cleared, my ego is reset, today is day one. What core value am I going to operationalize today?
The myth of the giants has convinced us that if we aren't changing the whole world, we aren't leading. But we change the world one interaction at a time.
One person at a time.
We unlearn the myth by embracing the messy vulnerability of being human, by dropping our fake legs that only serve to make us palatable to others, and by treating every single day as a fresh, conscious commitment to the behaviors that define our best selves.
We don't need external permission to lead. We don't need the corner office to matter.
We just need a plan, a daily behavioral question that holds us accountable to our core values, and the grace to know we will fail and try again tomorrow.
This has been an incredibly transformative deep dive. We started by diagnosing that heavy feeling of alienation, that societal trap of feeling like just an everyday person.
And we completely tore that down.
We did. We navigated the extreme vulnerability required for the day one mindset, riding shotgun with Mustafa off the Qatari sand dunes and learning to clear our mental cache.
Which is such a powerful tool.
It is. We explored the accidental magic of the lollipop moment, and most importantly, we learned the concrete three-step process to actually operationalize our values so those moments aren't left to chance anymore.
Right, because hope is not a strategy.
We learned to plan for failure instead of fearing it, to evict the toxic tenets from our minds, and to finally stop waiting for someday to start leading.
The psychological tools are all there. The framework is built. The only variable left in the equation is the choice you make when you wake up.
So we leave you with this final prompt from the book. Look at the 24 hours immediately in front of you, forget about yesterday's mistakes, and forget about tomorrow's anxieties. What is your day one going to look like today?
And before we go, consider this one lingering thought. If leadership is truly just a daily behavioral choice, then the opposite is also true. Every day you choose not to act, every day you let your ego run on autopilot, you are actively choosing to be a follower in your own life. Who is writing the script for your day two?